Imagine this, a simple card game that helps you to dive into your emotions.
I'm feeling overwhelmed, uncertain, doubt, uncomfortable, powerless, blocked, closed, disheartened.
A business giving us permission to feel, especially at work.
Most conversations I'll have with other leaders will be, I can't do that. That won't work for us. But my question is, well, how do you know? Have you tried it?
Kia ora, I'm Jehan and welcome to Imagine This, a podcast about creative people bringing their wildest dreams to life right here in Wellington. My guest today is the founder of Riders&Elephants, and he's the creator of the Emotional Culture Deck, Jeremy Dean. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I have followed you from afar. I have admired your work. I'm thrilled to get the chance to talk to you today.
Well, that's humbling in itself because I've followed your work equally from afar. And I know we've been like ships in the passing night, but I finally get to sit here and speak with you, and that's humbling. So thank you.
Awesome. So you help people to get in touch with their emotions. Why are we so uncomfortable with talking about our feelings?
Well, potentially it's hidden in that sentence because I don't even really like to tell people that I help them get in touch with their emotions because that is scary in itself.
Yeah.
And you'll get people putting up barriers immediately, arms crossed, walking away from you, telling you that it doesn't matter or it's a crock of you-know-what. All those responses just from that sentence. So I tend to stay away from that to begin with.
How do you describe what you do?
I make games, and these games help you discuss what's important or express yourself. These games happen to nudge you to be more vulnerable and open, but they're games at their heart because you play them. And I grew up playing card games. I grew up playing with things, and I'm a sportsman. And so leading with that.
So tell me more. What is the Emotional Culture Deck?
It's a beautifully simple game that helps you understand what drives and motivates you as a human being, but in the workplace. And I'd been working in the culture space, and potentially a lot of people who are listening right now might even roll their eyes and go, well, we've done a whole bunch of culture work here. We're on our third CEO in 7 years, and we're going through the values exercise again. And I'd been part of that.
The whiteboard and the Post-it notes and all that stuff.
All that stuff, Post-it note, death by Post-it note, death by CEO roadshow. Go around the country and say, this is who we are. Quality, integrity, excellence is so important to us. And most people in the organisation will roll their eyes and go, that is not our value set. That is not who we are. That's not how we are. And time again, I was hearing people going, well, it's a waste of time. I've been through 5 of these. And it just got me thinking there must be a better way for having a conversation about workplace culture.
So how does the game actually work? How is it used?
We give people labels. My biggest insight over the past 6 years is that we want to talk about this emotion, but we just don't know how. It's not a business thing or a personal leadership thing. It's a societal and cultural thing. We're not given the mechanism, the tools or the labels to have discussions about our emotion and express ourselves. And that means that we are fearful of it because we're not familiar with it. And so at its essence, there's nothing really revolutionary about this game. I'm up front with people and saying, you can get a pile of Post-it notes and do this yourself, and I hope people do. But we just give people the words. We give them the labels so they can express themselves in a way that they've not been able to before.
So you've got a deck in front of you. Give me some examples.
Well, when I caught up with you when I first walked in, I said I was feeling overwhelmed. And so overwhelmed is on one of those cards. I'm feeling overwhelmed. There's restless, reactive, uncertain, doubt, uncomfortable, powerless, blocked, closed, disheartened.
And what do you do with that once you've identified what you're actually feeling? What do you do next?
I think that the most powerful way to lead or to manage somebody, if that's a term that somebody's using, is to understand the motivations and drivers and fears of your people. So if you know that I don't want to feel alone, incapable, and doubt in my work, then I would hope if you're my leader, you'll help me manage and mitigate and cope when that comes up. Because I feel alone, incapable, and doubt on a daily basis with the work that I'm doing. So at its heart, that for me is leadership because that shows that you care. You're helping me express myself. And there's this really strange phenomenon with the human mind. And Dan Siegel, who's an incredible thinker in this space, has the term, you have to name it to tame it.
So part of the problem, right, is that we have these big names for emotions. So we might say angry or happy or sad, but what does it actually mean? And so from what I understand, part of the purpose of the game is to help people identify what is the specific emotion that's sitting underneath that and what's driving that. Is that right?
Yeah, get as granular as we can, because we do have these big terms. If you're lucky, you might get happy, mad, sad, or glad, like the top four, the top five, the famous five. But there's so much beneath that we're not able to access because we don't have those words. And in the workplace and at home, it's unbelievably important because there's nuance in that, there's understanding in that, there's expression in that.
Let's take a brief detour from the game itself. How did you end up here? Because you were a professional cricketer, right?
Yeah, when we didn't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I yesterday finished working with Wellington College, a school here in Wellington, with their first 11 cricket team. I went to Wellington College, I'm an old boy, and we definitely didn't talk about it at school. For our cricket practices, we did boxing, which is not cricket related at all. We beat the living daylights out of each other. We definitely didn't express our vulnerabilities and be open and share.
You weren't taught how to do that when you were young?
No. It's interesting, because it's a combination of, was it not acceptable, or was it just not taught because we didn't know how? And it's a combination of both, but we were never able to break that circuit. And then when I ended up playing professional cricket, it was the same thing. There was no vulnerability, no openness, very hierarchical. If you were new on the team, you just kept to yourself and you didn't really express yourself because you only could express yourself when you got to a certain level. I suffered horrifically from performance anxiety. I didn't know how to handle myself. I blacked out at games. Now I know how to reframe those things as excitement and good energy, but I didn't at the time.
So how did you go from cricketer to entrepreneur?
A lot of luck and serendipity.
Did you ever want to be in business?
No. I didn't know what I want to do. My cricket career finished, and I've had two I call midlife crises, but they're not midlife.
You've had two?
Yeah, they're not midlife crises, but two crisis moments in my life that have defined my path and where I'm at now. And the first one was when I got dropped from my cricket career, which was my dream to be a professional cricketer. And that.
What was that like?
I remember being on the steps of mum and dad's home just in tears, bawling in tears, going, I don't know what to do now. Like, it gives me shivers thinking about it now, because all I wanted to do since I was 12 years old was play cricket, and that had been yanked from out underneath me, and I had nothing because all I'd focused on was playing cricket. I hadn't been to university, I'd travelled to play cricket. I had no real life skills. I was great at socialising because I drank a lot, and that kind of gets you so far long term. And that was the moment where I went, I've got nothing, I don't know what to do. I didn't even know how to ask for help. All I had was tears, which were fear, embarrassment, guilt, that I hadn't lived up to my potential. But I'd been at the gym a lot because I was a cricketer. And cricketers, I was injured a lot as well, so I spent a lot of time in the gym, and I thought the one thing I do know is a gym. And so I thought maybe I could sell gym memberships. After a while of working in that industry, wanted to become the marketing person because I really admired that person and liked the work they did. So I studied marketing and did a marketing degree. And I took the job of a personal assistant at a design agency, and then design turned into the world that I'm in now, designing card games.
What made you think that you could get this off the ground?
Just blind ignorance. And I don't potentially think we're still even off the ground, but it's out there. More ignorance, because most people have said it's an absurd idea, it's crazy, don't give it away for a start for free because that's not good business.
So you give this away for free?
Yeah, completely for free. You have to download it and get your scissors out and do arts and crafts, which I think is a cool mindfulness exercise in itself.
So tell me more about the philosophy behind that. Why did you want it to be free?
Two things. It's a dual purpose. First of all, I wanted it to be free because in the early prototyping of this, most people are like, what is it? It's like, what do you mean you've got a game about emotions? There's no way. We're not having a meeting with you, or it's not going to work for us. And I was sick and tired of hearing that. And I thought, well, the best way to change people's opinions about that will be to give them unfettered access to it so they can experience it and then go, oh, maybe there is something here. Because otherwise I was just going to be a salesman my whole life. And I despise the snake oil salesmen out there. I didn't want to be that type, and I still don't want to be that type of person. I want the experiences to change people's minds. So that was the first reason. And the second reason is I want to make it accessible to everybody.
Because you've got quite a big dream about where you want this to end up, right?
Yeah, it's almost one of these dreams that I'm not even sure where it's going to go because it ends up in parts of the world that in countries I'd not heard of. I mean, I'm vulnerable enough and open enough, humble enough to admit that I didn't even know these places existed, and our game is being played by people in those countries who are emailing me and saying, thank you for making this available because I can now have these conversations because we had no budget.
Give me some examples of where this game has ended up.
A social worker in Texas emails me and says, thank you, you are helping save the lives of some of my patients because I'm able to use these resources. And I just go, that's the reason. Because they would not have access to this game, these conversations, if there was budgetary constraints in Papua New Guinea. During the testing of the Wellbeing Deck, which is our latest game, we had somebody say, through the testing, this game saved the life of one of my colleagues. I didn't set out for these games to do that, by the way. I set out for this to be a corporate tool, but because we've made it available to everybody with no barriers, really amazing things are coming back in return.
How does it feel when you get that kind of feedback?
It's daunting. It's overwhelming. And I don't think I've expressed that to a lot of people because on one hand, I'm grateful and humble for that, but it's daunting because all of a sudden my job has become, and my life has become more important than just creating a business to support my family.
So you feel a real sense of social responsibility through what you're doing? It's becoming too big and too important, I think, for me not to put 150% into making sure that this continues to survive. And hopefully, because it's out there already, it will. But my job now is to share the story so other people can hear, oh, maybe that could work for me. And maybe my child, who's never opened up to me, a 16-year-old girl in Christchurch who's never opened up to her mum, and her mum's emailed me and said, for the first time in 2 years, I've had a proper conversation with my daughter. And I designed this game for corporates, not for that. Yeah.
But those people are able to use the game, and then I learn about that, and I'm like, okay, this is more real, more intense, more overwhelming than I ever thought it was going to be. And even a lot of my friends probably don't even understand that this goes on as well.
You talked about the opposition that you had to the idea in the beginning and the opposition, the cynicism that you still experience when you pitch this to people who don't know about it. I really struggle with rejection, and especially if what's being rejected is something that's really personal to me, because what you're sharing a lot of the time is not just a product, it's something that's sort of been birthed out of you. How do you deal with rejection?
I did poorly to begin with, and I actually spent a lot of time and energy on that and worrying about that and trying to convince those people. And I'm a uber fan of Seth Godin. Many people listening might know of Seth Godin or have read some of his books. And I remember listening to Seth Godin in this audiobook called Leap First, or Leap, I think it was. And he said that find people who believe in what you believe and create a tribe out of them. And that was a changing moment because I'd spending so much energy trying to convince these people who were cynical, who didn't care, who thought I was a lunatic and didn't see what I saw. And I channeled that energy into the 3 people that believed what I believed. And then those 3 people talked to 3 other people. And I thought, there's a slight, I've got a little bit of dissonance with that as well, because you want to be careful you're not in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
There's the risk that you then only surround yourself by only people who believe what you believe. And seeing different perspectives is important. But when it comes to rejection and putting your ideas into the world to begin with, you need to find the people who care deeply as you do about your creation.
Because we have that natural desire for everyone to like what we do, right? But that's a fantastic way to kill your idea and kill your business.
Yeah, it's fanciful and it's well-intentioned because you want it to succeed, but it can't succeed unless a really small core group of people love it more than you love it almost.
So is that all you need to begin with? You need a core group of people who believe in what you're doing?
Yeah, there's, I can't remember the name of the author, but he started the Wired magazine. He talks about 1,000 true fans. Because any business can survive off 1,000 true fans or 1,000 community members in our world.
Do you just work for yourself?
I started out working for myself, but now, as I said, it's become about the community we've built. And even people, to be honest, at the start when I said I want to build a community of people who use this game were like, there's no value in that, there's no point in that. And I said, but if we build a tribe of people who use this game and have an impact far beyond I can, because I can only go to so many places at one time, then that will help us have the biggest impact and change as many people's lives. And my job now has become how I serve them. And I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for them.
Do you want 100 people working for you?
No.
Why not?
I want to, because my own anxiety, my own performance anxiety, my own overwhelm, my own struggles that I have, the thought of being responsible for that many people in a direct relationship like that is too overwhelming for me. That scares me. Maybe I could learn, and there's no reason why I couldn't learn to do that, but I know from my cricket career where I struggled the most was the imposter syndrome and having other people that relied on me. And the company I want to build is whereas I can still have the same impact, but it can be in a way that doesn't put so much pressure on me that I can't perform. And if I can't do my job and I can't serve those 100 people, then the business and our game and our world will crumble, I think.
So how are you protecting your own well-being while getting this out to the masses?
I treat my life like one giant experiment, and I'm consistently running experiments. So to give you an example, when things started to pick up a little bit in terms of intensity, I started doing no meetings Mondays.
That's cool.
And I was like, holy moly, I'm getting a lot done on Monday, and I'm feeling a lot better about myself, my well-being. And I was like, what would happen if I did no meetings Mondays and Tuesdays? And all of a sudden, 2 days a week, I cleared my diary and I just worked on the things that were most important and cleared out all the distraction. And that was 4 times as effective as the no meetings Monday. And I thought, why don't we turn that into a whole week a month? And so for the last 9 to 12 months, one whole week of every month, there's nothing in my diary.
That's awesome.
That's for me to spend time on myself, my family, on the things that matter the most for serving our community. But I think our own personal lives, we don't think about designing experiments and testing them, because most conversations I'll have with other leaders will be, I can't do that. That won't work for us. And my question, I can be a little bit competitive and I realise that, but my question is, well, how do you know? Have you tried it? Oh, no, it definitely won't work. I've thought about it. It won't work. We're in an industry where you have to serve people. Like, but have you tried it?
That's really countercultural though, right? Like you have to have some courage in order to go against that workplace culture. I mean, another thing in New Zealand is presenteeism, this whole thing of having to sit at your desk for X amount of hours per day. People aren't creative in those environments, are they?
But where's that coming? Where's that cultural, where's that belief set being driven from, is my question. And my hypothesis, and I guess assumption, is that's driven from fear from those leaders who are running those organisations, fear that they don't know what's happening if people aren't there. And we need to deal with that fear before we can change the system.
So what is your advice to creative people who have great imaginations, have ideas that they want to bring to life in a business sense, might be doing it at night or from their kitchen table? How do we foster this?
Share your ideas with everybody as early as possible. And people told me not to do this. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Because the more you share your ideas with people, ideas are free. And most ideas aren't original anywhere in the South. They're an amalgamation of other people's ideas that you've just put a different spin on. And the real power is how you execute the ideas, not the idea itself. Because there's been millions of people who've thought of electric cars, but nobody's done it like Elon Musk has done it, for instance.
Yeah.
For a pithy example. But share your ideas with everybody, because you share them with one person, and one person gives you one piece of feedback that then takes you down a different path completely. And you would not have got that question if you'd waited till the 15th iteration of the product. And by then it might be too late.
People really worry about IP, don't they? They really worry about holding their good ideas close to their chest.
Yeah, and I'm potentially really naive when it comes to this, and I'll be open with that. But and certainly some IP at that billion-dollar business level needs to be protected, so potentially really closely. Maybe not, but the arguments will be that they do. But at the same time, I think that if you want to, not everybody can be one of those people who has a billion customers or can have a billion person impact, because those are rare. But I think lots of us have ideas and are creative, but we're held back by wanting to make the idea perfect before enough people can see it. And we don't realise how powerful the crowd can be, your tribe can be in making your ideas better.
So it's about getting it out there as early as possible and allowing other people to help you workshop it.
Co-creating it with other people, relinquishing control.
Again, that's tough though, right?
It's strange, because I want to feel in control of my work on a day-to-day basis, but I don't want to be in control of where this game goes or how people use it, because there's so many people who are way smarter than me, far more experienced than me, far more creative than me, who've actually done stuff with this game I'd never dreamed of. But if I put so much control around it that you couldn't do those things, I would never have known that that was possible.
I think that's something really powerful in your story, the fact that you have let go in some ways. You've gone, I'm going to put this thing out into the world. I'm going to make it as good as it can possibly be, But I know that it will go out and morph and transform, and it'll be used in unpredictable ways. And that's okay. Maybe that's something to actually be celebrated.
Celebrate it and then build upon it and see where it goes. We talked very briefly about imposter syndrome out there, and I suffer from it on a daily basis and did in my cricket career and still do today. And coming full circle to your original question about why we give it away for free, potentially an unarticulated reason, which you've actually helped me reflect on just now, is that one reason why I'm potentially giving it away for free is because it also takes me off the hook to a certain degree. Because if you're not investing any money in it, then you can't really come to me and say it's rubbish or it was a waste of money, because it didn't cost you anything to experiment with it or try it. And so early doors, it was a way of me going, well, maybe this is going to make it easier for me, and it gives me the confidence to go into the world and have conversations about it, because I say, well, you don't actually have to pay anything for it.
So you sort of protect your own ego.
A little, I guess so. It's not so much an ego thing, but protect my own vulnerabilities, because I've failed before.
Yeah,
really badly. I've learned from that now subsequently, but I've failed, and I fail a lot on a regular basis just because I now run experiments in my life, like you've heard. But that's taken me off the hook a little bit, even though I know now that the game does work and it is important.
How do you make money off something that you give away for free?
We train people how to use the game. Once again, I didn't realise this was going to be the case. I originally designed it to give away as a freebie so people could ask me to come and help them out. And then somebody came to me and then said, how much does it cost? And I was like, well, I hadn't even thought about selling it. How much would you pay for it? And they said $250. I was like floored. I was like, okay, maybe I need to readjust how much I thought it was worth.
Yeah.
And I said I had 4 packs, so you could buy all 4. And that started me off. So then I knew I could sell the game. That was the first moment where it became not just a gimmicky giveaway. It had substance to it. And so selling the game, selling the packs of cards is one revenue stream. Then people said, can you teach me how to use it? And my initial response was, well, not really, because there's 9 steps in it. There's nowhere you can go wrong with it. You follow the steps or you don't follow the steps, but you still get to a great outcome. So you don't need to learn. You don't even have to pay to learn. You just play it. And they're like, no, I want to learn. So we start teaching people how to use it.
So that's where your revenue comes from.
And that's a big slither of it now.
And people buying the physical game,
packs.
But they can get it for free online.
They can get it for free as well. Yeah. There's no barrier for them to do that. There's something nice about having about the tactility of cards. And people can obviously still download the PDF and print it at their local printer and use them. And that's fine too. But there's something nice about getting the game in a box, in a substantial box. And because I've come from a customer experience background, I understand it's a Maya Angelou quote, but she says people don't remember what you say, they don't remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel. And I've spent countless hours and time and effort to make sure that every order we've ever sent out, every pack of cards that we've ever sent has got a handwritten note from me.
Wow. That's a pretty massive commitment.
Yeah, and the CFO, if we had one, would say that's a giant waste of time and there's no return on that. But I go, well, when Seth Godin sent me a book that I bought 6 years ago, I remember to this day, I remember the moment, I remember where I sat, I remember the house I lived in, I remember where my wife, wasn't wife then, but soon-to-be wife, was when I opened the package and 2 books came out of the package and I only ordered 1. And I went, that's strange, because I only ordered 1. And there was a note in there, it wasn't handwritten, so this is the one part where I feel as if maybe I'm one-upping Seth Godin if it's possible at all, which it isn't. In the note it said, I've sent you 2 books, please share one with somebody that inspires you. And I know who I gave it to. I remember who I gave it to. He might not remember the book, but I remember who I gave it to. And I was like, I want to recreate that feeling. Because to be honest, the note could have said, it might not even have said that, but I remember that feeling. And I was like, I want to recreate that when people receive our games. And so we do a very similar thing, but the handwritten note hopefully is something that somebody goes, well.
So your card games have ended up all over the world and you are running this business from Wellington. What do you love about working from here?
It's maybe a cliche, but like the 0.5 degrees of separation. Because when I started this strange journey I'm on with these cards, when very few people knew who I was, and very few people still don't know who I am anyway, but even less so, I needed to meet people to go, could you be part of test? Would you want to test this? And my wife knew somebody at the council, and I got a coffee meeting, and she said, yep, we'll try it for you. And my old boss knew a guy in Auckland who said we'd try it. And And somebody from the council who played the game told one of their friends, and I tried it with their business, and there was just this amazing network, this spider web of interactions that came from just meeting with one person in Wellington. And I was like, wow, this is, and that was when 10 people used it. And I was like, wow, this has gotten big already. This is pretty surreal. And I've only spoken to one or two people.
I think that's something that people who haven't lived here don't understand, that level. We talk about how networked the city is, but you literally can't walk from one end of town to the other without bumping into friends, colleagues, old schoolmates. There is so little separation, and that's why it's so easy to toss ideas around with people, right?
Yeah, and that person knows one other person that you know who you went to school with, which makes it sound a little bit hickory-dickory, but it's not in a sense, because there's a real humility with people here as well. Maybe that's just the part of Cuba Street that I worked in for 6 years as well, but there is a real humility where there's not a sense of there's egos, and there's competition, but it's certainly a friendly competition, not a fierce competition.
Do you see yourself continuing to live here and work here?
In my mind, these cards will always be shipped from Wellington, New Zealand, despite the customs and duty charges we cop in Canada and Europe, etc., which I always end up eating in terms of, if the customer's disappointed about that, we'll refund them for that, because I often think that bad interaction can be flipped and we can create even more loyal people in our community if we make up for that. And I like the idea that this card game comes from New Zealand. Ironically, we're not huge about saying this game comes from New Zealand though, because I was worried at first that people might go, emotions is a strange topic and peculiar and difficult topic anyway, let alone from the country of New Zealand who doesn't have much reputation in that space.
Yeah.
And so I was mindful of creating a bit of mystique about this being a global brand to begin with. But at the heart of it comes from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm a product of Wellington, New Zealand. I've been here my whole life.
Finally, creating this business, how has it changed you as a person?
I've evolved hugely as a person. And I think that's something I've become comfortable with now. You don't have a malleable, your personality is malleable. I've found that my personality is malleable. And I'm different from when I used to drink 6 days a week and be a professional cricketer, and even from when I was working at my design agency. I've become more open, more vulnerable, maybe more thoughtful than I ever was. But that's also challenging for myself, because that's not who I was, and it's mean I've been alienated from some people in my life. And so I'm grappling with what that means for how I continue to move through, but just also knowing that this is where I'm from, and the people who have supported me are really important to me. And I think, to be honest, having our baby daughter Isabella 12 weeks ago has changed me more, which will sound cliche a little bit again, but I thought I'd felt joy before, but I realised I haven't felt joy until I saw her, and the mornings I now have with her. I'm now actually able to express that though, because I didn't have the words before.
Thank you so much for the heart that you bring to everything that you do. It's been awesome to talk to you today, Jeremy.
Well, thank you. And as I said, I'm grateful and humbled to be here.
Imagine This is brought to you by Wellington NZ. Check out more episodes right here or wherever good podcasts are found. See you next time.